Hello, so I want to take a moment and talk to you about something called symmetry. So, two things actually. I want to specifically talk about something called radial symmetry. But I just wanted to show you this picture of a building. Buildings are really fun to make, but you definitely need to take your time. You've got to use a ruler if you choose to use one. You've got to draw with pencil. And then this building is an old church, an old cathedral, and I made it symmetrical, meaning that if I cut it in half or folded it in half, it would fold onto each other, so everything would line up together. So that's symmetry in a very small nutshell. Just to show you how I made this once again is that after I drew it with pencil, I went over and I used a Sharpie, both a regular Sharpie and a thin Sharpie, to add back all of the details, still using the ruler. And then I haven't finished it, but it's colored with marker bleeding, which is really nice because you can add different value. Okay, but what I really want to talk to you about is radial symmetry, which this is not perfect, but that is symmetry that goes around in a circle. So like a mandala or a snowflake, a pattern that repeats over and over. And if you want to do something like this, these CDs that you're gonna have access to work great as central windows, but they don't have to be. So here's one that I'm not finished with. And then I continued with radial symmetry, having it go out throughout my paper. Again, this is a mandala. So each pie wedge is the same, a mirror image, I guess it's just the same, of the piece next to it. So if you would like to do something like this, if you're using paper, then you need to use regular markers, crayons, oil, pastels, that stuff. However, if you are drawing on plastic, that's what a CD is, it's plastic, then you will need to use colored Sharpies, all right? Again, these are really special and I don't have that many of them, and they're only for certain things, including drawing on plastic. So if you are going to do a combination project like this, then you will need colored Sharpies, but also regular markers as well. So I'm not going to actually do this one because I don't want to get it dirty, but you can see here where I've started making patterns that repeat and go around and around. So I'm not going to do that much because you probably are not here to watch me draw, but you're trying to fill in and have everything be interesting, but also it's hard to draw the same shape over and over. If you want to try to use some of the tracers, you can. But again, my goal is radial symmetry. And no, I'm not going to finish even this section. But you can see that I'm going really slow. You have to go slow when you're drawing on this type of plastic. Otherwise, it's almost like the Sharpie picks up a lot of the ink that it lays down if you go too fast. Also, you want to work mindfully. The biggest thing, maybe you just saw me do it, did you see how I turned the paper? That helps me, and I can tell that when I did this, I didn't turn the paper, which is why some of it is wonky. Turning the paper allows me to draw the same shape over and over again without so many mistakes.
In the boys' restroom in the